Good evening, everyone. A very warm welcome to today's Tech Talk. I'm Sandhya from Business Development Team at Krishworks Technology Innovations, and I'll be your host for today's session. While at Krishworks, we focus on solving real-world problems through IoT and industrial technology. Today's Tech Talk is about another important area: how technology is reshaping the way we learn and grow. Technology is not just a tool anymore. It's changing how we gain skills, how organizations adapt, and how individuals prepare for their future. And to guide us through this conversation, we are privileged to have with us Coach Elizabeth Terry, an internationally recognized NLP trainer, master coach, and positive intelligence coach. She is the founder and lead trainer of Limitless Transformation Coaching and Training Services Limited, with extensive experience in training, HRD, ICT 4D, and personal development. Coach Elizabeth has guided individuals, professionals, and leaders at home and abroad to overcome challenges, build essential skills, and unlock their highest potential. She is also the visionary behind the UNO, a personal development app for youth of Jamaica, which Krishworks had the privilege of developing in collaboration with her. A project that blends coaching with technology to inspire better life choices. Today, she will share her insights on how technology is transforming the way we learn, grow, and develop future ready skills. Please join me in warmly welcoming Coach Liz. Coach Elizabeth, may I now invite you to share a few words? Hello, ma'am. Yeah.
Hello and good evening, good morning to anyone who is watching. It is such a pleasure to be here with you today. And thank you for that wonderful introduction, Sanya. Really appreciate it. So I think this is a topic that's really very close to my heart because almost all my life I have been in this business of training, not necessarily in the classroom, but developing people. And my mission is really to help, persons fulfill their highest potential. I see that as my mission personally. And so, as we move towards this new era of AI and fast-paced dynamics that's happening in our world, I think the whole business of how do we as human beings keep up and accelerate is so important. I mean, when I think about when I went to school, I don't know about you, but when I went to school, we were in a classroom. And if you missed the class, you missed the learning, unless you had some friend that, would give you very kindly the notes for the day, right? And you could borrow them. But that was it. You had to be there physically. Now we're in a situation where, you can pick up a smartphone. Someone in rural Jamaica or rural India might have a tablet, and you pick that up and you can access learning instantly on demand. I mean, that's a whole new ballgame, right? And so it is, in fact, changing the way that we learn and grow. So I'm really happy to be here to have some discussion with you. And yeah, let's get into it.
Yes, we are happy to have you as well, ma'am.
Yeah,
So let's begin with those with some questions.
sure.
So when you think about learning today compared to 10 to 20 years ago, what's the biggest change you have seen because of technology?
Right. So I kind of hinted at them in my opening remarks, and one of those is just this idea that you can instantly access education from anywhere, and I think this is a really positive thing, because when you think of the cost for education and the difficulty that some people have once you have an internet connection and you have your own device of some sort, then you basically you're democratizing education, right? You are helping to level the playing field, and I think this is really a big advancement for us. I think also that the teacher, of course, now the role of the teacher has to change considerably, because in my day, the teacher was the font of all knowledge, and the teacher was the guru. That person had all the information that you ever needed. And if you needed more, you went to Encyclopedia Britannica. And that was on your bookshelf, right? And now your bookshelf is Google and Chat GPT. And we kind of wonder to ourselves, well, what did we do pre-Google? It's a very, very different world. So the access, I think, is the biggest thing for me that has really changed, that we can access. And of course, the ability to have personalized education. Everything is not one size fits all anymore. You have special requirements, you have a particular interest. Your curriculum can be now modified more easily to suit your particular interest. Of course, that's not in the general traditional schools, certainly not here in Jamaica yet, but you can do that outside of the classroom. And so our ability to really have more personalized services, I think that's a big change that we see coming. Another has to do with the breadth of information that we have access to, the content. It's not just what was in a textbook anymore. And so to me, education is flipping, because it's not so much about the content, it's about what you're doing with it. And this raises questions about, our critical thinking, our ability to analyze large quantities of data. I mean, this is a big change. So it's not just content coming in anymore, because I can get that pretty much from anywhere nowadays. But education is forcing us, I think, to use higher order skill sets. Yeah.
So thank you for that, ma'am. And I also believe that personal education is the point where we are headed now compared to the past. And and also many of us can relate to that also. And looking at how things have changed, I'd like to dive a bit deeper. Every change comes with challenge. Could you share one challenge your organization faced before adopting technology, and how did tech help overcome it?
Yeah. Well, you mentioned in your introduction about Uno, and that app that we developed together along with some other wonderful teammates here in Jamaica and in other countries. And so Uno was a response to the challenge that I witnessed in my years at working with our Heart Trust NSTA. I was there for 17 years designing and developing programs for vulnerable youth. And one of the things that I noticed was, of course, that the youngsters coming in really did not have the level of emotional intelligence, confidence, self-esteem that they needed. And when you look at certainly Jamaica's classrooms, and I imagine that this happens in a lot of developing countries, that the teachers are really very pressed. They don't have the bandwidth to be able to deal with each individual student. And a lot of students nowadays, especially because they are faced daily with video content and this very fast-paced and quick-moving online world, that they become very disengaged in a traditional classroom. They're distracted. They don't really pay attention to the teacher anymore. And so between the overburdened teachers and guidance counselors and the challenge with the students being disengaged and underperforming, and of course the challenges that we have been experiencing and heightened by COVID, things like anxiety, depression, low confidence, all of these things. I thought that how do I use my expertise as a coach, as a trainer, and couple that with technology? Because the truth is, that's where the youngsters are. You have to meet them where they are. And where are they? They're on their phones. So the idea was to develop a product that would help young people to learn how to use their minds. And I say minds because that's not something that generally the traditional school curriculum teaches. They do aspects of it, but not the deep dive that we would do certainly in a coaching environment. So how do you really help youngsters who have low confidence and low self-esteem? How do you get them to appreciate the internal power that they really have, but they're just not connected to, right? They're connected to their phone, but they're not connected to their own internal power. So these were some of the things that really caused me to think about how to reach more young people, because of course there is the aspect of resources. How do you do that quickly? How do you reach 1,000 young people or 10,000 or 100,000 young people adequately, at least as a support to what that they need to have? It's not necessarily the entire magic bullet, but if it can provide them with a good foundation to begin believing in themselves and understanding that power and connecting them to it, learning how to use it, then I believe that would be, a great service. And to also help teachers. So technology really was the vehicle through which we have been able to do that design and to allow youngsters to have a resource that they can tap into, that we feel is engaging, that will, through all the gamification and storytelling and that sort of inclusion, that they are able to relate to it, and to the content, and to interact with it, and to use that to uplevel their own understanding of self-regulation, self-awareness, and just being more comfortable in their own skin, being able to thrive in what I call a less than ideal world.
That's admirable, ma'am, trying to identify what the youth problem, like improving their EQ and trying to solve it through the technology. So,
Yes.
and since you mentioned about adopting of this technology, so let's explore this further. From your experience, how has technology changed the way people learn new skills in your organization?
Okay, so I'm an organization of one. So my, I wouldn't be a very good example, but I work with organizations, right? And one of the things that I've noticed is, of course, the time element, right? Everybody is working in this very dynamic and fast-paced environment. And so organizations want to be able to offer training that is impactful, but it's not necessarily extended. It's like small bites, little nuggets, pieces that you can take on board and apply. So I've seen the proliferation of online programs, for example, and I think COVID helped to expedite that and really move people online. And so before, when you expected all your training to be face-to-face, nowadays it's, I would say it's at least 50-50, even though people have returned, excuse me, for the most part to their offices. I think still quite a bit of training, especially because of remote teams, is done virtually. And so that ability to deliver training in micro training, as it's potentially called, that is impactful. It's evidence based, and then the follow up, because I think organizations are beginning to realize that for learning to really happen, then it needs reinforcement. It needs maybe post workshop coaching, whether that's in house or externally. Yeah, so these are some of the things that I've noticed. Certainly, also the focus on, I know that traditionally it's called soft skills. I call them power skills because I think they're so important. But you mentioned, emotional intelligence, and that is something that I believe is very important as we move forward, especially into this very AI driven world. So,
Yes. So, building on this, let's talk about engagement. So, you've mentioned about gamification in Uno. So, what role do you think fun elements like gamification can play in making training more effective and
yeah.
engaging?
I think it's really important because, as human beings, we have our motivation drivers. And so every time we get a reward, we get a kick of dopamine, and we want to go on some more. And I think, especially in an online environment where your motivation has to be intrinsic for the most part, but also how you tap into those motivation drivers is going to be different from if you are in a classroom, right? So online, then the engagement piece is so important. So just sitting there and listening to an hour-long video or reading a PDF is not going to cut it, right? That's no longer going to produce any kind of output at the end, any ROI. You need to be able to have that interactivity. And so things like the little quizzes, the ability to do exercises within your training. I mean, from an organization point of view, this involves when you're doing, Zoom rooms, your breakout rooms, you have various means of getting the participants involved in the training so that it really becomes relevant. You begin to connect with it. It's not just something that you are seeing on the screen. So the leaderboards and they even have apps nowadays in terms of building community and collaboration. That's also a big thing, right? Peer-to-peer learning and collaboration. These are things that I believe are becoming more and more important as the education process is flattened. So it's no longer just the teacher and students, but people are learning from their peers as well. Mentors, peer-to-peer mentoring, also very important. But in an online environment, definitely those rewards. And from, maybe 15, 20 years ago when they first started to introduce video games, this whole idea of racking up points and tokens and scores, that's where it was really born from, because people realized that this was important in keeping people driven and keep them coming back. Of course, in everything, there's a downside. I was just listening to a little YouTube podcast, and one of the things that came up was the fact that everything can have a positive and a negative, right? But it's really how we use it. And youngsters, especially when they're really young in that developmental state, 0 to 3, 0 to 7, when they have too much screen time, then that gets them very used to having this dopamine hit all the time. And of course, reduction of the attention span and that sort of thing can be negative. On the flip side, interestingly enough, what this piece of research showed was that if managed well, then it also has a potential to help youngsters that are growing up in this very fast-paced environment to better cope with all of the excitement and the chaos and everything that's happening so fast around them. So, I think it's really about balance. It's about understanding the pros and the cons. And if you're a parent, then certainly managing screen time, allowing it, but having some controls. I don't know if I veered off your question.
So it's okay, ma'am. So we were just talking about this balance, and yeah, some people believe that technology is more distracting than helpful. So could you please elaborate a bit more on that? Yeah.
Yes, so kind of follows on to this question that it can produce things like, I mean, there's research that suggests that it also, too much screen time can help produce hyperactive kids, and yes, I do believe that when you see youngsters, 3 years old, and they're just sitting there with their tablets, the tablet also, it sort of becomes a babysitter for the youngsters, because parents, busy off doing something else, and they, give the child something like this to just look at all the time. And certain aspects of the brain are not fully developed. Things like imagination, because when your parents, when I was going to bed at night, your grandma or your parent might read a story, and you're not seeing, maybe you're seeing the book, but at times they might just be reading, and you're using your imagination to create all of these images in your mind. But in a screen situation, everything is there, bells and whistles, the video, the pictures, the colors, the audio, everything is coming at you at once. And so these aspects of your brain don't get as much development. But there is, as I said, there is always another side to it. And we can learn how to focus. Activities like mindfulness, which is something that I teach through positive intelligence, help you to develop what we call your self-command muscle, to recognize when you are being distracted by maybe your own internal voice, but it might be something external as well, and to allow you to become very present. Because here's the thing, we have maybe 60,000 thoughts a day, according to some researchers, and a lot of that is not really focused in the moment. It's focused on something that happened a week ago, yesterday, last night, worrying, or maybe some anxiety about what's coming up in the future, right? So we are not fully present. And I think when we have all of these devices, even though we are there, we're hyper focused on the device, it actually doesn't allow us, we don't get to develop this ability to shift and to focus on something else. So it is a distraction, or it can be. So bringing us back into our ability to self-command, to direct our attention to what we need to, then I think that's very important. The other perhaps negative side to technology is, especially in youngsters and kids, and even in adults too, because I've seen this happen with persons in a relationship where everything is so focused on the phone. You might go out to dinner and each of you is on the phone, and so instead of conversing, we lose that ability to be conversant, to be social, to engage with human beings rather than just engage with the phone. So it can be, and it really comes down to, and I want to say emotional intelligence, it comes down to training yourself, to developing these internal powers that we have, and not giving our power away to the screen.
Great point, ma'am. So, as a final thought for the next generation, what skills do you believe are most important for young people to learn in today's tech driven world?
Well, I think it might have been the World Economic Forum that suggested a number of skills, and one of those is resilience, the ability to take any result that we are getting from the actions that we are taking as feedback and not failure. That developing that inner muscle to recognize that we are really powerful beings, that even if we are not getting the result that we want immediately, that we can bounce back. So developing that inner strength and courage. And linked to that very closely is agility, our ability to shift focus. And I would say very closely aligned with that is our, what we call in NLP, sensory acuity, meaning to recognize using our senses when something is not working and to change course, right? Because sometimes we do need to change course. If we're not getting the result that we want, we say, well, okay, fine, let me try something else. And so this ability to, we would call it here, bob and weave, to take whatever information is coming at you, not as failure, but as feedback, and to be able to bob and weave. Critical thinking, I think, is also very important. Discernment. We have an overload of information that's coming to us in deluges, and how do you make sense of it? How do you even recognize what's fact and what's fiction? And we see what's happening in the world. Anybody can tell a story, and if you say it enough times, it becomes true. So we have to develop comes back down to our emotional intelligence, right? Our inner knowing, our inner sense of discernment. Yes, we can use our rational mind to analyze data, to say, well, okay, I've done my research and this is not logical, or this is, and make sense of it in that way. But there is an inner knowing, there is an intuition. And I think what the world and the changes and the tech is forcing us to do as humans to survive and to thrive is to tap into our own internal compass, connect to our internal power, because AI, even generative AI, and maybe things change as the years progress, but right now AI is responsive to us and tends to reinforce whatever we want or say we want. If you type anything into ChatGPT, it's going to come back with some kind of positive reinforcement, right? So it's learned that very well. And I mean, there was a very sad case recently about a young boy who eventually committed suicide on the strength of him discussing with ChatGPT this idea of I'm feeling lonely. How do I cope with it? And whatever the conversation was, AI reinforced it for him. So wherever he was going, AI reinforced it. So what this says to us is that we have to develop our discernment. We have to recognize when we have a power within us that is so much greater, I would say, than what we have developed locally. We have a consciousness. We have that self-awareness. And the more that we can tap into that aspect of ourselves and use our EQ to be discerning as leaders. I think this is very important because this is what AI can't do. AI can't do this for you, at least not yet. I don't know down the road, but right at this moment, no. So we need to not step away from our humanness, our ability to connect. I mean, so many research papers have been written and experiments done on the importance of human connection. And I don't think we should give that away. We are super intelligent beings. So, in as much as AI is there and is helpful to us, we need to learn how to use it for our benefit and not give away our power to it because our minds can become very lazy too. We can become over dependent on these things, and what if they're not there? We still need to, in my view anyway, I still remember my times table from school, and I find it very helpful because if I can't find a calculator, I can tap into that knowledge that I have and come up with an answer. It might take me longer, but I still have the benefit of knowing how to do it. And I think that's really what we want to achieve. That's the aspect of ourselves that we want to amplify and magnify. I think skills, back to the question, the kind of skills that are required, things like highly technical skills. AI is not going there yet. So I think those are areas that we can more fully explore. The lower level labor skills are going to change, right? So we need to up our ante. We need to ensure that we are focused on those higher order skill sets. Nurses, doctors, even in the other fields, creatives. There are a lot of areas that AI is not yet tapping fully into, but at an organizational level, I would say those critical thinking, resilience, emotional intelligence, those are the key areas, I would say.
Thank you for sharing those skills, ma'am, for guiding our next generation. So, we've also received a couple of interesting questions from our audience.
Oh,
So,
good.
may I request you to address? Yeah. So, Mr. Sharath has
Right.
asked, how do you balance technology with the human side of coaching, especially emotional intelligence, empathy, and connection?
Really good question, Sharath. Yeah, so it is, for me, I use it as an aid because when I work, I do have, I'm a certified positive intelligence coach, so I do have access to an app that is not proprietary to me, but I use it to help facilitate greater in-depth learning. And yes, it's an important aspect of what I do, but then there is the application of it. And that's the focus. It's the reinforcement of whatever that is teaching you. And it need not be EQ, it can be anything. And how to help your client connect the dots for themselves. So it's not about me, telling the client what to do. It's about my skill in giving them the kinds of questions and orientation that will help them to convert that learning into something that becomes unconscious to them, because learning goes through various stages, and at the first stage you're doing it consciously, but helping to embed it in their psyche so it becomes something that is automatic. It becomes a new habit. And I think this is where the coach can be really important, because the coach is in dialogue with the client, and can help where maybe AI cannot, to see certain things that are happening in the environment and to help bring out certain points to ask the right questions. This is not to say, because I have seen demonstrations of AI driven bots for coaching. And in fact, some, very high level coaches have developed their own AI trainers, so to speak, that they are offering to their clients. But usually this is supported by some human intervention. And I think that this is what really helps to connect the dots, because AI can't see everything. Even if you know all of my knowledge, it is that EQ that the coach brings to the table, and the coaching skills that helps them to really embed that learning, to make it maybe even more relevant, and to reinforce it. So Sharath, I hope that helped.
So the next question is from Mr. Jagan. Sometimes online courses feel a bit isolating compared to in-person learning. So how can technology bring back that human connection?
Yeah, good question. So this is where I think I mentioned it somewhere earlier, that the collaboration aspect, building community. I think this is definitely something that is happening now, that people recognize that just, being by yourself in isolation, doing a course can be downright boring, even if you have the leaderboard going, but you don't have that interaction, because we're social beings. Humans are social beings. And so we want to have the interaction. And so a lot of platforms now are including this ability to talk to one another, to share ideas. One such platform I know of is School, and I think Patron might also do something similar. So that if let's say I have a course that I'm running, which actually I'm going to be doing in January, that there is this ability for all the participants to connect online and to share their learnings or to ask questions, and they get feedback from their peers and perhaps also from the facilitator, the teacher. So it is a key piece of keeping that momentum going and helping to embed the learning as well.
Thank you, ma'am. So from Miss Angel, do you think kids today are learning faster than we did just because of all the tech they have?
Yes, I really do think we are, because our brains are designed to evolve. And depending on the experiences that we have when we are growing up, that will definitely have an impact on the rapidity of learning, being able to, use this information and gain more. But as I said before, it's not so much about learning the content anymore. I believe the skill that we really need to be using is that critical thinking and the ability to sift through the data and so forth. But yes, to answer your question, I think yes, we are learning faster.
So we have another question from Ms. Kargi. Thank you for the insights as well, ma'am. It would be interesting to know your professional journey.
Oh, okay. Well, I think at first I never really thought that I would be doing what I'm doing now. I have to confess, when I was at school, the only thing I really wanted to do was to get out. I didn't have any lofty ideas about, going off to college and university and all of those wonderful things. I really did not know what I wanted to do. So maybe it's that kind of blank slate that led me here. But I mentioned the importance of mentors, and for me, my eldest sister was somewhat of a mentor to me. And when she saw that I was, not following through with perhaps her expectations of what I could do with my life, she insisted and nudged me to really consider going into whatever field, just, taking off and going to university. And I did. I took that advice rather reluctantly at first, because I think I really didn't think I was cut out for higher education. But fast forward, I finished my degree in languages, actually. And then I was working part-time in the tourism sector. And I worked for a small hotel for quite a few years after that. And I moved from there to the Jamaica Tourist Board and became a trainer. And that was also a shock to me, because I never thought that I would be standing up in front of people, let alone doing what I'm doing today, and training people. But it sparked something in me. It was like an unseen, unknown aspect of myself that the experience of actually doing it brought it out. And that was my love of learning and passing on that to other people. And so I realized I really, really enjoyed this training thing. And so I left my job and I joined the tourist board and did this contract for training persons all across Jamaica in the tourism sector in various skills, front office, customer service, supervisory skills, and so forth. And I really enjoyed it. I realized that this was definitely something I wanted. So from there, I guess a bug hit me, and I decided I wanted to go off and do an MBA. Well, actually, it wasn't an MBA. I wanted to do organizational development, but because I was living far away from Kingston at the time, I didn't have access to that training, and we did not have online. We did not have. I had to be physically there at the university. Yep, no online in those days. And so I had to jump in my car. I got in. I didn't actually do OD. I did an EMBA, and I specialized in human resources management. And I jumped in my car every week and drove into Kingston, a journey of about 3 hours, and then drove back the next day and completed that. And from there, I eventually returned to Kingston, and I did consulting for a while, consulting in, management and strategic planning and all of these things. And eventually I ended up at the Heart Trust NSTA, as it's called now, as essentially a project manager. So I studied project management. I'm a PMI certified, although I haven't kept it up over the years because it just kind of changed my focus. But it certainly was a good foundation in learning how things work. And, if you're organizing a project like UNO, for example, that ability to manage, different moving parts and bring a project to fruition was exceedingly helpful. And also during my tenure at the trust, I headed up an affiliated NGO called ICT for D Jamaica. And that was for about 7 years. At the time, we did not have a focus on how ICTs could be used for development. It was more of a telecoms or an industry, called contact center or something like that, but not so much on how technology could enable different aspects of economic and social life, like education. And so I learned so much through that experience of heading up quite unexpectedly this NGO. And that was my full immersion into how ICTs could really help, up level activities in any sector, make it more efficient, more effective, more interesting, more innovative. And from there, because during that time I was also doing additional studies, so I became a passion test facilitator, wanting to help people recognize that what really brings them joy is an important part of truly living. And if you can align your life with the aspects of yourself that are uplifting, that make you sing, even if it's only 70 or 80% of the time, because we generally can't do that 100%. But if we can do that, then our lives are so much better, right? So I did that, and then I studied neuro linguistic programming, NLP, which is, in short, it's a toolkit for understanding the mind and how to use it effectively to get the kind of results that you want. And then on to positive intelligence, which is a great complement to that because it gives you a different complementary skill sets as to how to rewire your mind for success over a period. Really create those lay down those new neural pathways. And so that's kind of where I am now, and in my own business from 2015, officially since 2018 when I left Heart. And yeah, it's my joy and my passion to really help anyone, particularly leaders, because of the excuse me, because of the impact that they can make on their people, their organizations, and of course, the youth at the bottom, because that's our future.
Completely agree, ma'am. And we could feel your passion for your service and training from your journey.
Yes.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I think that's all from the audience.
Okay.
So, yeah. So, ma'am, and now I'd like to take a brief moment to explain what we do at Krishworks.
Oh,
So,
please. It's been
at
great,
Krishworks,
by the way. It's been great working with Krishworks. I just want to say that here because coming and making that connection, all the way from Jamaica, and you guys in India, there's a little bit of, well, I don't know. I'm not sure how this is going to work out, but I must say it was really a great experience from a professional point of view, the responsiveness of Krishworks to our needs here, the understanding. And in fact, I would say that one of the reasons that I selected Krishworks because I did a little bit of research on you guys. And one of the things that I really appreciated was your social entrepreneurship, certainly in the beginning part, and your work in rural India to use the technology to teach English. And that so resonated with me because I realized that there was a connection, oh no, this is how we can work together. So yeah, it was great. I know
yeah.
that this is an unpaid commercial, but I really wanted to say that.
Yes, yeah, we really merge on those two paths, Krishworks and your vision of, So, at Krishworks, we specialize in developing end-to-end IoT products and solutions, from microcontrollers to cloud sync. We handle full-stack development. Our expertise also spans sensor integration and connectivity protocols such as Wi-Fi, BLE, LoRaWAN, Zigbee, and NB-IoT. So we also recently launched SiteTrack, an Industry 4.0 ready industrial orchestration platform. It helps you track assets, personas, workflows to gain efficiencies and optimize your industrial operations. It has features like predictive maintenance, automated workflows, digital twins, intelligence upkeeping, improving of monitoring and the response systems. And it also integrates smoothly into the existing systems like ERP, WMS, and SCADA systems. So, on behalf of Krishworks and SiteTrack, we thank Coach Elizabeth for sharing such valuable insights and for having you today, ma'am. So,
Oh,
your
it's been a great
experiences and
pleasure.
perspectives. Yeah, the pleasure is also ours, ma'am. So your experiences and perspectives leaves us with fresh ideas and inspiration, ma'am, to embrace technology. And to everyone who joined us today, thank you for being part of today's Tech Talk. And stay connected and look forward to more such talks.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.